How many times have you caught yourself saying, I can never do that, or I'm not smart slash creative slash talented enough for this? That self defeating voice isn't just in your head. It's a pattern that starts early and can follow us through life if we let it. I'm so excited to be continuing talking about personal empowerment. If you missed last week's episode, it was all about taking an active role within your life. Originally, I was going to record what we'll be talking about today as the 50th episode, but since this one is more of an honest, straightforward, tough love type episode, I wanted to ease into the topic. I got this idea after caring for someone for a bit. It was a challenge because being the youngest for a long period, you aren't really equipped to take care of someone unless you had cousins younger or you did babysitting or something. But during this time, the person I was taking care of had this video game. So while I was doing coursework or something either for my career or creative pursuits, she spent time playing a video game. The video game at times was a bit advanced for her age, so when she lost, she would get really upset and frustrated. So obviously I tried to calm her down and let her take a break from playing and tell her she'll get better with time, but how she replied made me feel extremely sad because she was like, no, it's not fair. Everyone knows how to play better than me because they're bigger and older, and I'm never going to be good. I will admit, even though she is just a child and doesn't completely understand the weight of what she was saying, something about still hearing that still hurt my heart a bit, you know? It reminded me of someone else who is older than me, but constantly repeats narratives like, I never had the brains to think that way when I was your age, or I could never be that creative. And again, it hurts my heart when I catch people that I love and that I care about talking down on themselves. I think you notice those things a lot more when you are momentarily in a growth practice, but listening and observing these things in other people also helped me come to the conclusion that no matter your age, young or elder, you have to actively work on being conscious of how you speak on yourself. It happens when you are young and it continues on even in a mature age because we grow into a fixed mindset, and that is something I want to dive deeper in today. So before I get this episode started, I should probably introduce myself. Hi, my name is Aleja, but you can call me Lay. Welcome back to A Little Atypical, where we dive into all things wellness, personal development, and lifestyle topics. I love to just talk about things I am currently reflecting on or things I've been observing lately for fun. If you're enjoying the show and vibing with these conversations, I'd love if you could take a quick second to leave a 5-star review and to drop a comment. And don't forget to hit the follow button so we can keep chatting about all things personal development together. Your support means the world to me, and it helps other amazing people find our little community. Now back to the topic. I wanted to talk about something I constantly say to myself when I'm trying something new, which is, it's not hard, you're just intimidated. To some, that may sound like a harsh word to use, but sometimes certain words hold a bit more of an impact to give ourselves the reality check that we need. You could also say, it's not hard, it's just new, or it's not hard, it's just unfamiliar. But that type of phrasing doesn't completely cover the scope of what you feel with newness and unfamiliarity. While yes, many of us, when pursuing new things, we feel a sense of excitement and possibility, especially if it's something we thought about for such a long time. The problem is when we engage with something and it's not what we thought it would be, or it's a lot more difficult than we expected, we either quickly declare something quote unquote isn't for us, or enter this pattern of stopping and starting again. Some common things about humans are we don't like things that challenge our perception of the world, and by extension, the perception of ourselves. When we aren't initially good at something or make mistakes in the process, we internalize it as a character flaw, and we tend to avoid situations where we might fail publicly or feel judged by others, even if those situations can lead to growth or learning. By saying intimidated, we are addressing the feelings that happen when something is new or unfamiliar. These feelings often include anxiety about making mistakes, fear of judgment, and uncertainty about our ability to succeed. When we say we are intimidated, we're acknowledging that emotional barrier that stands between us and trying something new. Think about someone learning to drive for the first time. Most people are naturally bad at driving. They're intimidated by the responsibility, the complexity, and the potential consequences of making mistakes while driving. This intimidation can manifest as procrastination, overthinking, or even convincing ourselves that we are not capable. But here's the thing. Intimidation is not a measure of difficulty. It's a measure of our emotional response to the unknown. When we label something as too hard, we're often really saying this makes me uncomfortable or this challenges my current ability. This distinction is so crucial because we shouldn't be thinking just because something is hard at the current moment that we can't become better. Genuine difficulty does require skill development and practice, but the intimidation we experience when recognizing that it will take effort ultimately requires emotional management and mindset shifts. The power in recognizing when we're intimidated rather than facing something truly difficult is that it helps us approach challenges with more self-awareness and compassion. Instead of beating ourselves up for not being quote unquote good enough, we can acknowledge our feelings and work through them constructively. Additionally, we tend to have this belief as a society that things are only worth doing if you are good at it or if the outcome is perceived success, which intimidates us further from trying for the sake of interest. These are all learned behaviors. The fear of failure, the need for immediate competence, and the avoidance of challenging situations, these are all behaviors we've picked up along the way. They weren't present in us when we were born, just freely exploring and in learning without self-judgment. And this realization is actually empowering because learned behaviors can be unlearned and replaced with anything more practical and constructive. We can learn again to dive in with curiosity, make mistakes without shame, and keep trying until we basically figure something out. When we recognize that our intimidation is not a fixed part of who we are, but a pattern we develop, we can start to challenge and reshape these responses. This is important because our genuine interests are always persistent, even when we try to suppress them. Have you ever noticed how even when you push those things aside, it keeps finding a way back into your life? I've experienced this so many times with things like writing or analytics or even chemistry. This persistence tells us something important. When something truly resonates with us, it doesn't simply disappear because we're intimidated. Instead, it manifests in different ways, almost as if it's like waiting for us to be ready to embrace it fully. This is why recognizing that our intimidation is learned and therefore changeable, because the things we're genuinely drawn to will keep calling to us, offering us multiple chances to overcome our fear and engage with them. You know what's funny? I was reading a passage the other night that completely changed my perspective too about learning and confidence. And I think you might find it interesting too. It talked about reaching mastery isn't just about talent. It's about staying connected to reality and being tough enough to face our weaknesses head on. Since the section is a bit long, I'll just shorten it. But basically it said, to reach mastery requires some toughness and a constant connection to reality. As an apprentice, it can be hard for us to challenge ourselves on our own in the proper way and to get a clear sense of our own weakness. The times that we live in make this harder. Confidence is important, but if it's not based on realistic appraisal of who you are, then it's mere grandiosity and smugness. I know that sounds a bit intense, but here's the thing. We are living in times where it's so easy to avoid challenges, right? The passage reminded me that real confidence isn't about pretending we're perfect. It's built through actually doing things, through trying and sometimes failing. Think about it. The most confident people you know are probably the ones who aren't afraid to try new things. And let me share something else that also resonated. The other day, I saw this message and it really hit different. It said, you don't have to punish yourself for not having the life you thought you would have. That one got me thinking about how many of us approach our goals from this place of feeling like we're somehow behind or broken because our lives don't exactly look how we imagined. And then we try to overcompensate for that, you know? And here's what I've learned and what I hope you take away from this entire conversation. When you start challenging yourself from a place of genuine curiosity and interest rather than desperation or self-criticism, something amazing happens. That intimidation we talked about earlier, it starts to fade away. Why? Because you're not putting all this pressure on yourself anymore. You're just exploring, growing, and learning because you want to, not because you feel like you have to fix something that's broken. So that is all for today, and now it's time for the card pull. If this is usually when you hop off, thank you for making it this far. And it would mean the absolute world to me for you to share this with anyone who you think needs to hear this. And don't forget to follow to never miss an episode. Anyways, we are still using the Moonology deck, and the card we got is The Answers You Need Are Coming, Full Moon in Gemini. This card is a reminder that it's important to speak your truth, but remember that your words have consequences and impact your listener. Right now, you need to guard against indiscretion. The answers you need may well come soon. The issue you're facing could well be one or a few conversations away from being resolved. If you're inquiring about a love situation, a little flirting may be called for. If you're in the middle of an argument, this card comes to you as a reminder of the old, very non-Gemini message, least said, soonest mended. It's good to talk, but be careful you aren't causing yourself any issues with your words. Words have enormous power, as metaphysician Florence Scovel Shinn, 1871 through 1940, put it. Your word is your wand. You create magic and your own reality every time you express yourself. Attuned to the moon. Have an important conversation, but stay calm. Additional meanings for this card. Don't be superficial. Someone is trying to flirt with you. Have you noticed? You need to laugh off this situation and just move on. Job applications have good prospects. The teaching. Talk, and more talk as the emotional full moon moves into the communicative sign of Gemini. It's too easy to say too much, so mind how you go if you pull this card. This card can also indicate an enjoyable social event, since the full moon in Gemini is a great time for socializing. This card also augurs well for any study you're either taking or considering. Overall, receiving this card at this moment feels meaningful given our discussion about intimidation and self-talk. The message about watching our words resonates so much on multiple levels. It reminds us to be mindful of the language we use when talking to ourselves about new challenges. The words we choose, whether we say something is hard versus unfamiliar, can dramatically impact our approach and mindset. Second, it emphasizes the power of communication in shaping our reality. Just as the card suggests that words have enormous power, the internal dialogue we maintain about our capabilities and potential directly influences our actions and our outcomes. Sometimes the simple act of reframing our words can open up new possibilities and perspectives. Last off, now for what I am grateful for. I am grateful to get a bit of a reset. As I mentioned, half of February through March kind of put me in a slump, and April was just very experimental as a month, so it was a little overwhelming. But since things calmed down a bit, May has felt like a smoother transition, and I've been so relaxed within my actions instead of panicked. And overall, I'm just kind of happy about that. So that's it, my friends. You're a real one for making it to the end. Thank you for tuning into today's episode of A Little Atypical. If you found this helpful, don't forget to subscribe and share with someone who might need to hear this message. And remember to view the description box where you can find important links, such as the one to my website. So until next time, have a good day, evening, or night, and stay authentically atypical. Okay, bye.